feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the
Good evening,
greatest. Everybody on the
everybody.
face,
Good
and I look
morning,
around
good
and feel like
afternoon,
everybody is the
wherever you
fakest.
are.
I make this every day and I'm impatient.
How is everybody doing? Well, we're here today to talk about the sanctions that have been placed upon Russia and whether or not they are actually having an effect. Because we're obviously, if you live in the West, I live in the West, I live in America, and we are feeling the impact of this. They're sending money, they're asking for more money to send across the ocean to fight this war. So I'd like to know, are the sanctions that they are proposing, are they having effect? Since 2014, since the annexation of Crimea, the invasion of Crimea, the liberation of Crimea, call it whatever you want to call it, the sanctions have been increasing. And as bad as the relationship was between Putin and Trump, they tended to actually somewhat kind of get along. Biden has devolved that situation very quickly. Bear with me on this. I want to cover a couple different things. I want to cover what Russia is doing in response. Is there some state action as far as the Russian economy is concerned? And there always is. They're supposed to be. They've done a fairly good job. But we're at stabilizing their currency. But we're going to look at exactly what exactly they've done. So right here, we are at Bruegel.org. Right? Policy brief. How have sanctions impacted Russia? Okay. We estimate that close to 2/3 of Russia's banking system in asset terms has lost access to U.S. and/or European financial systems, and thus the world's two most important currencies. Right? They were cut off almost immediately from the SWIFT banking system. This was something they actually called or were considering a nuclear option for a long time. Well, it didn't take them very long to go nuclear. I guess the nuclear option, I mean, they did it almost immediately. Like within a week, maybe 10 days of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, they said just right away, so they blew their wad almost immediately. But if we look right here, we see from figure 9, Bruegel.org, share of the Russian financial system under sanctions. And you can see only US sanctions, only EU sanctions are down here. They're very small. And this is whenever all this happened together. This is all this just happened right now. So you can see the sanctions have grown exponentially since this has happened. So let's see, the banking system's structural liquidity surplus has returned to pre-war levels. And this is true. They have made quite a rebound in many ways. They have been, how would I say it, smart, just basically smart and paid attention to the money, what they were doing with their money. And they made some smart moves to shut things down, what seems to be some smart moves. But then again, this has consolidated much of their currency and slowed the velocity of their currency down because the foreign exchanges just are not happening any longer. But that's okay. Now we're going to go over to the impact of sanctions, the actual impact of sanctions. This is from the United States Department of State. Now, before we get into this, I want to talk about the extent of some of these sanctions because it obviously did not have the desired effect that we thought that it would. They believed, there was economists that even projected that the Russian economy would shrink by up to 15% in the first year. They're now projected somewhere around 3 to 5% shrinkage. It still hurts very much, but it's not 15%. This is not even close to the same thing. The Russians actually shut down their stock market in the middle of all of this to stop the bleeding and to stop people from selling. They jacked up the interest rate in their country to close to 20%. So if you were investing, you would get close to 20% interest if you just didn't pull your money out of the bank. enacted capital controls and didn't let people pull large sums out. It seems now that they've actually reversed course on that. I believe you can transfer $1 million a day or something like that now. They did a lot to shore up the leaky parts of the economy. But whenever they did this, they created almost a solid lump of this money that is just not moving, these rubles that are just not moving. They're not moving foreign exchanges, things of this nature. I mean, they're buying a lot of stuff from Iran. We see these drones that they're buying from Iran, stuff like that. But, and we'll talk about that later, the effect that the actual sanctions have had on their ability to make war and some of the evidence that we've seen behind what they're doing, some of the shoddy behavior that they've put together. The United States Department of State reporting the impact of sanctions and export controls on the Russian Federation. Okay, a few of the effects include major supply shortages for Russian forces in Ukraine are forcing Russia to turn to less technologically advanced countries such as Iran and North Korea for supplies and equipment. This is true. Despite as much as they talk about, China being Russia's friend, China is not sending Russia a lot of the stuff that you would think that they would be, and it's because they can't, and it's because of the sanction. Well, they could, but they're choosing not to break the sanctions that we have put upon them. Fair enough. They are turning to Iran. We see them turning to Iran for these drones. These drones are very cheap. They're something like $20,000 or something like that to produce a drone that has a warhead already. It's basically a loitering munition. It has a warhead already inside of the drone. It comes with it already built in. And they are not very advanced, but you can buy a lot of them. At $20,000, you can buy a lot of them. And North Korea, we understand the supplies that are coming out of North Korea. That makes sense as well. Russia is struggling to import semiconductors and other key components. Export controls have forced Russia to cannibalize existing airline parts as they can no longer access abroad. This is true. This is true. Russia is struggling as far as aviation is concerned. They are not able to source the parts that they want to source. And it seems before long, many of the planes that they have actually annexed and taken from people will not be able to be flown in a safe manner any longer. They don't have the replacement parts for these planes, and the air travel has been severely dampened, I would say, in Russia, as many countries aren't really allowing flights to and from Russia. So now there's a small number of actual flights coming in and out. Okay. Russian hypersonic ballistic missile production has nearly ceased due to lack of the necessary semiconductors used in the manufacturing process. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a second. We're going to get into the exact type of semiconductors that Russia can actually make. They are not very impressive. They are not even as close to as strong as my iPad. I've had an iPad Pro. They're not as strong as my iPad Pro. So, yes, their ability to make advanced weaponry has been severely hindered. They do have the ability to make ammunition. Ammunition is cheap. Mortars are cheap. Things of this nature. Russia's military aviation program has been cut off from resupply provided by global aviation trade. Absolutely. They're having, like I said before, they're having problems with their planes, keeping their planes going. Okay. In addition, since February 2022, the U.S. government has denied all U.S. exports, re-exports to, and transfer of items subject to Export Administration regulations for military end uses. So any military equipment. Targeted Russian and Belarusian military end users through their addition to the Department of Commerce's entity list, has effectively cut off the users, denied exports to, transfer with Russia for needed for oil refining, anything that has to do with oil refining, biological weapons, luxury goods to impose costs on certain Russian oligarchs, foreign direct rules, Russia to prevent exports of foreign origin items, tools, software. Okay, so software, I mean, basically everything. or the United States is placing these massive sanctions on Russia, and the effect and the ability of Russia to continue to wage war against Ukraine will continue to diminish. The ability of Russia to maintain itself on the world stage will continue to diminish. This is from Defense News. Russian microchip maker eyes Taiwan exit in response to sanctions. Taiwan Semiconductor and their ability to control who has access to the most advanced chips in the world, to the most advanced supercomputers in the world. And the United States, in agreement with Taiwan, under the understanding that if Taiwan would like us to keep um, supplying it with military aid, it will supply us with the best chips in the world. So, Defense News: Russian microchip maker eyes Taiwan exit in response to sanctions. A Russian microchip maker is considering leaving Taiwan in response to economic sanctions targeting Moscow. Which calls that there's two different types of semiconductors that Russia produces. We have the Elbrus 8S. This is from Wikipedia. The Elbrus 8S. This is a 1.3 gigahertz 8-core processor. This is the best thing they can create. I don't know if you know anything. Let's see about production start 2014. Data servers 8-core architecture is something. They're 64-bit. 28 nanometer. This is not a good chip. This is not a strong chip. Integrated memory controller DDR3. Nice. Okay. These are not strong chips at all. Let's go over here. Wikipedia reporting. Baikal CPU 1.2, 900 megahertz to 1.2 gigahertz. Let's see. It's just they're just not strong chips. That is kind of my point. This right here tells you this 1.2 gigahertz. I'm almost positive that my iPad runs at stronger than that. My point is that Taiwan Semiconductor is responsible and actually helps. These people, these Russian manufacturers, Elbrus and Baikal, actually outsource much of the stuff directly to Taiwan because it is really, really, really hard to make semiconductors. So now that Taiwan is no longer agreeing to cooperate with Russia on semiconductors at all, it is just a matter of time. And Russia, the computers in Russia and everything will continue to outdate. Even softwares and things of this nature, like Adobe, have actually stopped offering updates and things like this. So things will slowly, Apple is no longer servicing its devices. And so things will slowly begin to not work right in Russia. This is just going to be like this. So the question is what is Russia doing to what is Russia doing to counter this? They have already done a lot with their money, but they've kind of sheltered the money that they had. And since they've sheltered the money that they had, there's not a lot they can do with it. They do have a nice stockpile, and they are projected. Their stockpile is actually their export. Their export numbers are actually expected to go up. And much of this is because they're not importing anything anymore, right? So if you export a whole bunch of stuff and you don't import anything, then you have a trade imbalance. You have a surplus. Well, they have a large surplus right now because they're not buying anything from nobody. So because nobody will sell them anything. So it's not as good as people would like. Everybody would like to think it is. They say, oh, look at all this excess money Russia has. Well, what good is money if nobody will sell anything to you, right? You can only go to North Korea. You can go buy stuff from Iran. You can buy stuff from rogue states. You can't buy any serious equipment. Can't buy any serious hardware. Turkey continues to do business with Russia, which blows my mind. I don't know what to say about that. That's another story. But so here is one of the things that Russia is asking to do. This is from The Week reporting, theweek.com/Russia. Russia asks India to send supplies as sanctions derail Moscow's economy. Amid the ongoing sanctions choking its economy, Russia has asked India for products to keep its key industries operational, Reuters reported Tuesday. Officials in Moscow have reportedly sent India a list of 500 parts for national manufacturing. Sources familiar with the matter told Reuters. This includes parts for cars, aircrafts, trains, and more. The list, however, is still in its provisional stage, and it is unclear to what extent India will honor the request. One source within the Indian government reportedly described the list as unusual in scope. Russia's request is part of an ongoing effort to get around Western economic sanctions put in place following the country's invasion. Okay? So, India has notably been one of the few boosters of the Russian economy, as the country bought nearly 40% of all seaborne exports from Russia's Ural region in November, per Reuters. This accounted for a higher purchase total than any other country. The reason this is important is because India has found itself a special relationship with Russia, and it has been this way with Russia for a long time. They have a long history of not going to war with each other and cooperating with each other, despite whatever each other is going through. They remain neutral to each other, and they always do business. They always do business no matter what, and they always do good business with each other. Now, that being said, India is very much burgeoning. India is very much on the grow. It is on the up side of things. It's got a huge workforce. It's got money to invest in its people. It's got a military. It's got science. It's got institutes. It's still a very poor country in a lot of ways because there's so many people, but it is really coming into its own, and it happens to inherit an interesting situation because it is part of the I forget the alliance right now, but it's part of the alliance with the United States, the Quad Alliance. United States, Japan, Australia, and India have all gotten together to counter Chinese aggression in the Asian region, in the Pacific region. Excuse me. India knows that it's at a good position with the United States. India has an agreement with the United States that tells them that we're good. Us in the United States are good. Now, India has the ability to basically do whatever it wants. As we can see, it is still doing business with Russia. The United States is not throwing a fit about it and saying, okay, yeah, it understands that. India is really in a special position here, and it is exploiting it smartly. It is exploiting it. It bought as much Russian oil as it could. Whenever the price collapsed, it bought as much as it could. This was obviously a very smart move, and this is one of the things that has really kickstarted India's economy again. India can only buy so much. They can only buy so much oil. They can only buy so much Russian goods. And besides the fact that Russian goods aren't all that great, they can't just keep buying this shit forever. They need another rich customer, right? That's what I would say about Russia. Is Russia needs some more rich customers to start buying their shit because China has their own problems right now. So I want to get over to this oil embargo. We have an oil embargo. Here we go. Reuters reporting November 28th. Oil embargo set to restrain Russian stock recovery in 2023. Now, why I wanted to talk about this is because right now, Europe is still currently importing oil, or not oil, liquid natural gas and whatnot. That will stop. At the end of this calendar year, that will stop, and a full embargo will start. Europe will no longer be trading, I believe. Now, who knows? They could still be lying about the situation, but Europe will no longer be trading, or at least the EU and NATO member states will no longer be buying Russian energy at all. A full embargo will be in place as far as energy is concerned. We know that this is going to slow down the Russian economy. We also know that up by Finland, I can't remember the name of the city right now, but there is Russia has been burning close to $1 million worth of gasoline a day, has been burning it off. And you can actually see this from Finland. They've just been out there burning it off. And the reason why is because they have a bunch of extra gas. This is gas that they were supposed to be shipping to Europe, but they are not shipping it to Europe. So they're just burning it off. They're actually up there melting the Arctic ice cap. If you really want to know, I do believe that. And Russia has openly talked about this. They have openly talked about being able to grow grapes in their country, and how this is the century of Russia, and how cycles happen throughout time. And now it's the time for Russia to be warm and be able to grow things and things of this nature. And they have a lot of frozen land. Russia has a lot of frozen land that they could use. But my point being, Russia is trying to find a way. They've just sent an emergency list to India with 500 parts. What did they say? Car parts, airplane parts, and all this stuff. They need to figure out what to do about all these missing parts. They have crude weapons, they have old weapons, and you don't have to have smart weapons to blow people up. You can blow people up with old, dumb weapons. Dumb weapons work just fine. They're a lot more brutal, and there's a lot more collateral damage. But you don't have to put a high-end chip in every rocket. You can just send the rocket. Without the semiconductors and with the United States sanctions in place as they currently stand, Russia will continue to look and resemble like 1980s America as far as technology is concerned. Because right now it's around 2010. If we were gonna judge Russia's technology right now, they're somewhere around 2010, and they are going to devolve quickly. Their ability to keep commerce going is going to devolve quickly. I can't imagine some of the what you calls that are going to come out, some of the jerry rig jobs that you're going to find that people have done to keep their machines working. People will find ingenious ways to keep their machines working whenever parts can't be sourced. You can always make a part, if you're a good machinist or whatever. Russia was very adept at protecting their economy and protecting the stock market and protecting the ruble in general. But now we are in a war of attrition where Russia has not proven its ability to take Ukraine. It has not even proven its ability to take the Donbass. It has failed in many aspects. It did brutally destroy a good little chunk of Ukraine, and that's about what it can do. It can destroy a chunk of Ukraine. I don't know that it could do much else. It can destroy the country in the process, but it can't take it. It's proven a complete inability to take it. And the United States is betting on the fact that the Russians will run out of money, that the Russian economy will collapse before this happens. Now, there's some disparity there because the United States is sending what? We spend $40 billion to Ukraine. Well, our weapon system costs more, right? The bureaucracy, sending the stuff over there, all of this stuff costs a lot of money, right? Our contracts with, Northrop Grumman and Lockheed and things of this nature. So their what you call is command driven, right? They just tell their weapons manufacturers make some new weapons, and their weapons manufacturers make some new weapons. It's a whole other convoluted situation, and the politicians are involved, and people are being bribed. But at the end of the day, we have the best weapons in the world. We end up with the best weapons in the world. The Russian economy is the size, roughly, of the economy of Texas. They really just can't compete. And so imagine an economy the size of Texas trying to wage war against Ukraine for an extended period of time. This is going to get very, very costly. Now, will they run out of money? No. From what we can see now, no. At least on a 12-month projection, Russia will not lose the ability to wage war anytime soon, at least in the next 12 months. We have to look at what exactly is the point here. Is this worth it? Because somebody's going to have to pay the piper eventually. This money is coming from somewhere. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. And Biden is printing it and he's asking for more. And the European Union is sending it. Everybody's sending it, right? We've all decided that it is better to fight the Russians or fight Putin on Ukrainian soil and let them destroy Ukrainian soil so that we can destroy one of the polarities in the world. We can vastly diminish one of the polarities in the world. I don't think they're necessarily trying to get Putin out of power. If so, it's only because he doesn't like them or he won't cooperate with them. It's not because they think he's a bad dude. They don't care if people are bad dudes or not. So the answer is yes, the sanctions are having a severe effect on the Russian economy. They are absolutely working. But are they going to stop Putin from waging war anytime soon? No, absolutely not. Most battles are sorted out through negotiation. Rarely does one state completely conquer another state. So it might be time. It might be time to start to think about negotiating. Then again, I understand the idea that the Russians are kind of on their heels right now. And do you really want to let up whenever you have your opponent on their heels? I get that. So anyway, like I said, thank you for turning in to Fake News with Gangish. I hope to see you guys soon. And I'm going to keep bringing you guys the best, what's called the best news and analysis that I possibly can. Thank you for turning in.
Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing.